Hey, um, I'm Marcus Lee Stephenson, and welcome to the Marcus Lee Stephenson Show. I'm not gonna be here today. I'm not here today, because unfortunately I lost my uncle last night. So today I will have my co-host, um, going to take care of everyone. I promise you that. You guys are going to love the whole show. So we have Professor Linda Anderson King as a host and Angela Carter Clark. They will be able to introduce our guests. Normally I do, but hey, they'll do it today. Follow them on their social media pages. They'll let you know what it is, and you can always see the full episode of every show that we have done. Go to YouTube and look at the Marcus Lee Stephenson Show, spelled with a PH, and uh, follow me on my Facebook, on my IG, my TikTok at I am Marcus Lee Stevenson. On those two, Facebook is Marcus Lee Stevenson with the PH, and the show is called Marcus Lee Stephenson Show. So, but I'll see you guys next week, and we will have Sir Earl Toon from Cool Living Game himself. Definitely tune in and look forward to watching the show myself. But it's they're gonna talk about grief and it's social. I can't think of it right now because I'm just my mind is everywhere. So, but y'all enjoy. All right, bye.
Yeah, get ready. Get up, get loud, it's time for the show. Marcus Lee Stevenson's got that flow. Conversations that matter every Tuesday night. Inspiration, laughter, love, shining bright. Turn it up, let your spirit go. It's the Marcus Lee Stevens Show.
Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marcus Lee Stephenson Show, where we have conversations that matter. Today, we have two very important topics that we're going to be discussing, one of which is seasonal affective disorder, and the other is grief. And to my right is the Dr. Myrna Dartson. We have some powerful women in the house today. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story in just a moment. But before that, Angela?
Well, thank you, Linda. Well, first of all, Linda Anderson King. We're so
Yes,
excited, my
thank
beautiful
you.
co-host over here. And my name is Angela Clark. You can follow me at Angela Carter Clark on Facebook or Amplified Excellence on Instagram. And I'm so excited about this show because we're bringing healing and hope to people during the holidays. And so I am here with my guest, Latanya Copeland Berry, who is a certified grief counselor and coach. So we look forward to hearing your story as well. And my condolences to Marcus Lee Stevenson and
Yes,
his
yes.
entire family on the loss of their family member.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Angela. And before we actually jump into it, let me say first that seasonal affective disorder is something that a lot of people don't understand, and that's why we're here to bring a deeper meaning, to bring it to light, especially during the holiday season and grief as well. Sometimes we have family members or coworkers or friends, and they just can't get a grasp on life. During the holidays, not everyone is singing, being merry and bright, right? And singing, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Not everyone can say that, but we have millions in our country that are suffering from seasonal affective disorder. But Dr. Myrna, tell us a little bit about your practice, not where you're located, but tell us about yourself, your specialties, and how people can reach you.
Okay, I'm a licensed psychologist in private practice, and the scope of my practice includes, but it's not limited to, individual and family counseling, forensic psychology, testing, psychological testing.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's good to have you. So let's jump into it. Explain to our viewers what seasonal affective disorder is and its longevity, or its,
Okay.
yes.
So, seasonal affective disorder, otherwise known as SAD, is a type of depression that occurs that is related to changes in the season. So, typically, when you see a person experiences seasonal affective disorder, it's usually during the fall when the time changes and continues through the winter, it usually eases up around the springtime. But sometimes you can also experience seasonal affective disorder in the spring,
Right.
summer.
Yes.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Okay. All right. So the duration is about 4 to 5 months typically?
Typically, yes.
Typically. Okay. And you did say that people living, let's say, maybe perhaps even not in the wintertime, but they, again, can experience that in the summer.
Yes, in the summertime, it usually occurs in the spring and through the summertime, and it usually ends in the wintertime.
Ends in the winter.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the symptoms are kind of different for a winter sad and spring or summer sad.
Well, explain that.
Okay, so in the wintertime, usually what people tend to experience tiredness, weight gain, carb cravings, things of that nature. And in the summertime, people tend to experience insomnia, weight loss, irritability, and anxiety.
Okay. Okay. Tell us how seasonal affective disorder, give us some of those symptoms. How does one know that they perhaps may have it or are dealing with that? What are some symptoms?
Well, one thing people should do is really pay attention to your body during that time, because what usually you'll start to experience sadness, a loss of interest in things. Like in the wintertime, you'll start carb craving. You're tired all the time, wanting to sleep all the time. So those are the things. But some people just feel so down when the time changes, when it gets dark.
Yes.
That's if you find that it's pervasive, that's when you know that you have a problem, that you need to seek help.
Right,
Yes.
right. Angela, do you have a question?
I did have a question. Had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine, and we talked about, again, awareness and self-awareness. So talk a little bit about emotional intelligence and how that might play a role or help someone identify when they do have SAD.
Yes, so it's so important to just check yourself. Just pay attention to your internal cues. It's so easy. We get so caught up in life that we just ignore things. But if you see a pattern, if I just notice that, well, you know what, when it gets dark, I'm noticing that I'm more agitated. I might start crying. I want all the lights off. Just start to notice things about yourself. Become more self-aware and more intelligent about your own emotions, and then and just take note of those things and be proactive. It's so interesting that you ask that question, because sometimes if you fall and hurt yourself and if you fall and hurt your knee, what are you going to do? You're going to go tend to the wound. But sometimes we don't want to tend to those emotional wounds, so we just ignore what we're feeling. And the issue with that is that sometimes those small things can develop into bigger things. A depressive episode can turn into a major depressive episode. A major depressive episode can cause a person to start experiencing suicidal ideation.
Right.
So it's so important to be self-aware.
So what are some of the coping mechanisms that a person could employ when they figure out that something's not right? What are some of those coping mechanisms?
Well, one of the things is this: if you're feeling that your emotional state is more than you can handle, the first thing you should do is get help. And what's important is you have to really understand. People just sometimes don't know where to turn.
Right.
So if it's an emotional thing, start with a licensed professional, a licensed psychologist, a licensed professional counselor, a licensed social worker, someone with a license to assist you. And if you feel that you are a danger to yourself or others, that's the time to seek inpatient treatment. Or nowadays you don't have to do inpatient. You can do intensive outpatient treatment. Is an option for people now. But the thing, if it's pervasive, if something is lasting beyond 2 weeks, that's your cue to get help.
Okay. And what role does the family play in that? Does it help to be surrounded by family and friends, to stay busy, to journal? Are there any other mechanisms that they can use as well?
Yeah, if you don't, I always recommend getting help. And, and sometimes people are quick to pop a pill. Sometimes medication management is not the answer. Sometimes you really just need to talk about it. But there are things you can do to alleviate that pressure. Take a walk, exercise, change your diet. I know that a lot of people during this time, they want a carb crave, but carbs will get you sleeping and bring you down. So exercise, journaling, talking to someone who's going to be who's going to actually be open and negative. You know, sometimes we have to look outside of our circle of friends and family, because sometimes we hear they don't offer constructive assistance with us. So just someone that you know that can give you good, sound advice.
Okay. Sometimes people may confuse sad with the winter blues, but there is a difference. Can you explain the difference between the two? Clarify that?
Yes. So with the winter blues, that's just something, you know, what all of us probably experience that, you know, we hate it when it gets dark early. You know, it's just, we feel more inconvenienced and put out. But with sad, you're actually having a mental health crisis. Your symptoms are interfering with your daily life, your routine, your ability to function at work, your ability to function at home, and and with others. So it's just, that's the difference. You feel the inconvenience with the winter blues, but when you experience sad, you're actually in an emotional crisis,
Right.
a mental health crisis.
Okay, and so it's a shorter period of time, really,
Yes.
that the winter blues is happening, it's occurring. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a cure for? And I know we're constantly doing research, and are they getting anywhere near pinpointing what might be the cause?
There really isn't a cause, but there are some risk factors or contributing factors, and
Okay.
one might be a family history of SAD, or even if you have a pre-existing mental health disorder like depression or bipolar disorder. And some of the things that they do, light therapy, where you use a light box and it administers certain levels of light to that can help with serotonin levels. 'Cause, that's the neurotransmitter that regulates mood.
Right. Mood
Yes,
regulation.
but there really isn't per se a cure for SAD, but just things that you can do. And and really in individuals who suffer from depression or bipolar disorder, they're more at risk for experiencing SAD.
Okay. Okay.
And for people who do experience depression, you have to really be self-aware during this time, to make sure that your symptoms are not getting worse. And even if you know that you have a history of this, start beforehand. You know when the time is going to change. When the sun is going to go down. Talk to your doctor about your medication management, or talk to your therapist. Just start being prepared before the seasons change.
Right. Okay. Jen?
Are there any natural remedies, maybe? I think I've seen a mood tea or something like that.
The best thing to do if you're going through something like that is to talk to a doctor. We all can always try things over the counter, but the safest thing to do, instead of trying to self-medicate, is to
Right.
talk to someone. Because, also there's an increase in substance use when people are feeling down. You might start using alcohol or drugs, and again, an increase in food, yes.
Carbs.
Yes, but the best thing to do, some people can try melatonin, because, you have decreases in melatonin that, regulates your circadian rhythm. And so some people might purchase that over the counter, but the best thing to do is to talk to your doctor.
Right. Right. Okay.
So if we think we have a family member or friend that we notice changes in their behavior, how do we start that conversation with them?
Just say, you know what, I noticed that, lately you've been feeling a little down. You want to talk about that? Just see if they want to talk about it. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it, but don't give up on them. Just, don't try to force the issue, but just say, I've noticed lately whatever you've noticed, and just say, what can I do to assist, And if they don't want to talk, it's really important to kind of try to engage people so that they won't just get stuck in that shell. So just continue to try to create dialogue and to do what you can to assist them, to bring them out of that. Maybe say, hey, let's go for a walk, or let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's go get some dessert. Do something to get them out of the rut.
Right.
Right. So I guess then, the next question would be about grief. And how do the two correlate, if at all? SAD versus grief that people may feel during the holidays.
Grief is compounded next to SAD, especially because grief causes us to isolate. And on top of time changes and on top of colder months, it can compound what we're already dealing with as grievers. So that's a definite correlation between the two, for sure.
What are some of the misconceptions as it relates to grief? I know Linda asked the question about the duration of time
Yeah.
for SAD. Is there a prescribed duration of time for grief?
Absolutely not. There is no timeline for grief. Grief is so personalized and individualized that that's what we need to embrace. There is absolutely no timeline for grief. It is our own personal journey, and I like to even call it what Dr. John O., who wrote a book called We Go On, is that it's a language. Grief becomes a language. We now speak very differently. We don't speak in present tense, we speak in the past tense. So absolutely, there is no timeline for grief. And I think that is sometimes where we have the hiccups and the misconceptions, and sometimes it's stigmatized because we think we have to do this in a certain order
Right.
of the expectations of society. And so society is very grief illiterate
so.
in that perspective,
I like that.
because we think it has to be this certain way. And you've even heard, the 5 stages of grief,
Right.
which is actually not for grievers. It's for those, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created that for those who are terminally ill, to help them kind of process through that. And that's not to say we won't experience those things, right? The anger, the denial, the shock. Of course we do as grievers, but it's not that picture perfect way of it's step ladder of how we go through grief.
Right, right.
So,
Well, how can family and friends best support someone who's grieving through the holidays without being intrusive?
absolutely. The best thing is just to be there,
Present.
just to be present, and to respect the pause, to respect the silence. It does not mean that we, and I say we because I am a griever, that we don't want to be engaged. Sometimes we just need to recalibrate. We need to decompress. We need to recharge because we're already so overwhelmed with loss
Right.
and pain and all the physical things that go on with grief that we just need a moment sometimes. So I think the best thing for families to do is just to respect the pause, but also check in. Check in. One of my favorite things that happened when I lost my husband was I had a friend that says, I don't know what to say, but when I text you this yellow heart, know that I'm thinking of you.
Yes.
And that meant the
Yes.
world to me, to
Yes.
know that I was on somebody's mind. So just those little things, just to check in, and just to ask, do you need anything? How's your heart today? I'm holding your heart close to mine. Just the small things matter.
Right, right.
So you mentioned the loss of your husband. You
Yes.
and I share that type of
Yes, we do.
story with the loss
We
of our
do.
husbands and the children in the family. So talk a little bit about the impact of grief on children. What are some of those things we need to look for so that they don't
Absolutely.
slip into,
Yes.
seasons of sadness?
Depression.
And
Absolutely.
depression.
And if I may, I would love to share, back up a little bit, just share my grief story and how I came to this point. In 2023, in February, I lost my mother-in-love. I call my mother-in-law. October, I lost my bonus son, who is my son through marriage, and a few weeks later, I lost my husband. So I had 3 profound losses within 9 months, and so I know how that impacted my biological child, very much so. I mean, the isolation, the depression, the anxiety. The sense of losing self and not doing the things that he once enjoyed. So we have to be very cognizant, just as Dr. Myrna said, of what's happening, and also providing those spaces for people to feel like they can seek help. I'm so with you on that. Seek the help of a professional. Always seek the help of a doctor, even if it is something natural. Let the doctor tell you that.
Yeah, right.
Let the psychologist tell you that. But definitely providing those spaces and even an encouraging grief support or the therapy. Someone who is non-biased in the conversation because, we can always tell someone, well, pray about it or do this. But also you want somebody that you can just pour
That's
yourself
right.
out authentically
Right,
to.
right.
So just encouraging to seek the help. Yeah.
Okay, and grief can actually show up in different scenarios.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about that. Grief is not just about the loss of a person, but it could be a major life change.
Absolutely. In our grief illiteracy, we think that grief is about dying or death. And grief is, I was sharing, it could be a rites of passage. I had a client that came to a grief support group that I facilitated, and he was struggling with turning 40 because he felt like he should be further in life as a male at the age of 40 because his dad had told him, by this age, you should have this and this. So grief can be divorce. It can be health. It can be friendship, relationships, loss of income.
I was about to say a job loss.
Yeah.
I just
It can
imagine
be
all of the
a
people
pet.
whose
Kinds of
lives,
things. Loss of a pet,
Yes.
loss of a home. You could lose home in a natural disaster. That's a form of grief. So it isn't just about death. It's the gamut of lots of things of life. So we're all grievers in some
Yeah.
form or fashion in our lives. So
Can you discuss how grief can resurface later after we
yes.
feel we've kind of gotten over it or we've gotten so far, and then all of a sudden, bam,
Yeah. The waves of grief.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really believe in partnering with our grief. So when we partner with our grief, we're able to embrace those waves. We're able to know how to build capacity, is like I like to say with my clients, on how to really say, hey, okay, I'm going to take this moment and step aside. I'm going to cry. I'm going to journal. I'm going to pray, whatever that modality is for you, to come back to the center. So it's very normal to have waves of grief. We're human.
Right.
It's love that we have carried, and we're learning how to carry that love forward. So absolutely, embrace that. And it will always happen because grief, it's going to be always with us. It's just it's how we embrace it, how we partner with it, how we build capacity, how we create those modalities to help us partner with it and structure through it. And the best form of handling that is just to go through it.
Go through it. Right.
Just be very
right.
authentic and honest about your experience. If it's like, I need to step outside, especially during the holidays, I tell the group that I support and I facilitate, have a plan, have a grief plan. Have a plan to exit, to go get fresh air, to get the vitamin D in the sun, to help with the SAD, all of the things. But definitely just be real about what you're experiencing. And it's okay if people don't understand it.
That's
it's
right.
your language,
That's
it's your
right.
journey, it's your process.
Right.
Yeah, I had an experience with that this summer. I lost my sister 4 years ago, 2020, and just realized I knew
Yes.
within myself that I had not processed that. I didn't cry. I just moved on. I
Absolutely.
picked up. I had kids. I had this. I had that, and never really sat with it.
Yes.
And because I was actually in prayer for another dear friend who was sick with the same illness that she passed away from, and it just hit me
Yes.
like a ton of bricks. I was, honestly, I was worshiping
Sure.
and praying, and it hit me in a way that I never expected. But afterwards,
Yes.
Not that I felt free, but I felt lighter.
Yeah.
And it really helped me because what I didn't realize, like you, I had a series of losses.
Yes.
My husband, and then 6 months later, I lost my brother. And, we were very, very close. So for my children, they lost 2 father figures within 6 months, which is why I asked the question about the kids. But having to go through that, I went numb.
Yes. Absolutely.
I realized that for years I went numb. I went through a season of what probably was depression. Immediately after I lost my husband, I went numb.
Sure.
And so that, having experienced that now, almost 11 years later, I just, again, felt lighter and freer. So, I just think about those times when I'm like, Katrina, you should be here. You should see this,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I don't carry the same weight
Sure.
that
Absolutely.
I carried,
Yeah.
Prior to that moment.
Yeah.
So
And no one can tell you how long to grieve.
Absolutely not.
I've heard people say, and it's very rude, well, you should be over
should
it
be
by
over it
now.
by now.
It's
Over
like,
it.
are you
Yeah, are you
serious?
serious?
Right.
Yeah.
And some people deal with acute grief.
Absolutely.
I remember having a client several years ago, and she had been married, older lady, had been married maybe 50 years. And after losing her husband, she absolutely could not get through it. And I sat there with her, and sometimes you just have to, like you were saying earlier, be present. And the only thing she could do was cry. And I cried with her.
That's beautiful.
That's the only thing I could do was to cry with her. So do you have, or give me some examples of acute grief and you're having to minister or speak to your clients about acute grief?
You know, one of the things I do with forensic psychology, I do evaluations on people who have experienced the sudden loss of a loved one by a tragic death.
Okay.
And so, and typically it's just, you know, there's absolutely almost no consoling people who come in, you know, because, you know, having to relive their experiences, you know, and a lot of people experience post-traumatic stress disorder when they experience things like that. So it's just, you know, she was like, you just have to just really allow people to go through their process. You know, I've had people come in and, you know, they sit there and cry for 30, 40 minutes. They just can't talk about it.
Right.
But it's just so important when you're dealing with people with grief. And for those of us who have loved ones who are experiencing grief, don't tell people when they should be over it.
Yeah.
When people experiencing acute grief, there's such a shock factor, you know, and, you know, people just really can't process things. Like you're saying, you went, you know, all the time, you sort of crashed. And some people just, you go through the motions, you're planning funerals, or you're trying to take care of business, are trying to figure out how, you know, you're in the middle of a lawsuit about something. You know, you just really, sometimes you just don't have that time to process things, but when it hits you, it can really hit you. And it can be very, very damaging.
And that's what you were saying about the afterwards.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I experienced my 2023, I started grieving out loud. I always would do Facebook videos about community things and talking, and I started giving more language to grief and being very bold and courageous about my experience, not having any intention with any of it, because I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for almost 30 years, and then decided to turn this pain into some additional purpose. So my husband was a senior pastor, so I also had secondary losses. You know, the rhythm and cadence of your life, your Sunday shift, and you know, the routine and all of the things. So I had a lot of secondary losses that I had to deal with, and it really was a God thing. It was the Holy Spirit trying to give some language to it, and it was like, this is my afterwards, and the afterwards is just like Dr. Marner just said. You know, it's that whole the shock value and the trying to catch your breath, and you're having to give 5 death certificates for a bank account or the creditors, or just all the things that you don't have time to just breathe through. And so you function in the dysfunction of the grief, that it's really, once we finish the fried chicken, the green beans, and the corn on the cob, and the roll, and the watered down sweet tea, we wake up that next morning going, what in the world is next? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? Who do I call? And so that is what I've kind of called the afterwards. So everything really following that process of when you're like, whoa, what did I just experience? I'm in a fetal position on the closet floor. Like, what is this? So that's how I came about with the afterwards.
Yeah, and I can totally relate, because it happened for me relatively suddenly.
Yeah.
Friday, I talked to him. By Sunday, he was in a coma. By Tuesday, he was gone. And, you know, still trying to process and understand what is going on. And after that, I had to realize I felt the weight of everything on me at that point. All of the dreams, all of the responsibility. What about college? The house, you know, the cars, the prom, you know, just thinking about all of those things. Who's paying for the wedding? I mean, I had these random, you know, thoughts in my head looking forward at life and having the responsibility of doing all of these things for my children, where I thought that there would be 2 people and now there's 1. And so the weight of it was very grave. And I think that attributed to the probably depression, you know, that I went through. So yes, I definitely understand and try to now walk widows through that.
Absolutely.
If they have children, okay, here's what you need to do. Here are those things that you need to consider, because this is that moment, you know, when they say, I hate to say it, but when you got to put your big girl panties on and really face life.
Absolutely.
You know, the afterwards.
The afterwards.
Yeah.
And, you know, also in that afterwards, you know, because we are so grief illiterate, we're told on our jobs, you got 72 hours, you got 3 bereavement days, depending on who it is.
Right,
You know,
right.
Even though it could have
Exactly.
been my cousin, my second cousin, who's like a best friend, oh, that doesn't count. Just all the nuances that come in that part of the afterwards that we deal with. So I'm supposed to, you know, grieve my loved one. I'm supposed to plan a funeral and be, and try to pick myself up in 72 hours to come back. So it's all a part of that afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were speaking about the tea and the green beans and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yes. And this question is for either one of you. So during the holidays, then, how do we keep those traditions going that we know our
Great
loved
question.
ones
Yeah.
used to love, and we're sitting at the table and, oh, they used to love, their favorite dish was yams, and, how would you suggest we keep those memories going?
You know what's so interesting? I was having a discussion about this a few days ago. When we're grieving and we lose someone, instead of being so sad, maybe that person had prepare that person's favorite dish,
Yes.
or have that person's picture on the table. Do stuff like that. Like my mother My mother has severe dementia, and so as you know, we grieve.
grieve that.
Grieve that,
Absolutely.
and so just she loved to cook. So I love to cook the holiday dinners. I try to recreate things that she created. So just do things that are more uplifting, that can be conversation pieces to your family. This was their favorite dish. This was their favorite music. Decorate the home. You don't do things traditionally. Do things maybe that your loved one loves. Just do things. Think
bring them
outside of the box
closer.
to bring you all closer together.
Right,
Yes.
Absolutely.
I like that.
And you kind of segued into something that, and I think you touched on it, about that grieving process, because what if that person has a long-term illness?
Yes.
Is that grieving process different than that where you go through where there's a sudden death?
It's a good question.
Well, it's anticipatory grief. So anticipatory grief is that grief where you are anticipating the loss because there's a terminal illness. So you tend to be able to grasp and embrace, not to lessen the grief and the pain. I don't ever want to lessen someone's experience. But the anticipatory grief sometimes allows you to kind of rein in the thoughts of, wow, okay, they are no longer suffering. You might have been able to spend time with that person, being able to ask, or they might have given you words of encouragement in their passing. So yeah, that anticipatory grief can kind of feel somewhat different depending on the individual. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to take a much-needed commercial break
Yes.
to pay the bills, and we will be right back.
Step into your glow with Charissa Lux Skincare, where confidence begins with your skin. Our products are crafted for men and women who believe luxury should feel natural. From rejuvenating cleansers to rich hydrating serums, Charissa Lux is self-care at its finest. Because radiant skin isn't just about how you look, it's about how you feel. Discover the luxury your skin deserves. Visit www.charissalux.com today and unveil your glow.
We are back. We were flowing here, but I think we need to continue this conversation.
We were talking about, believe it or not, Chat GPT and the use of it, to get advice and counseling and therapy. What are your thoughts on that?
Not a good idea. I'm just like, don't do it. Please don't do it. And so many people utilize that. I was watching the Today Show a couple of months ago, and this couple, their son they allowed him to use the internet for an assignment, but he was actually just using the Chat GPT just to whatever it is to get information, but it gave him instructions on how to kill himself, and he committed suicide. Yes, he did. So it's never. You can't use technology to replace a skilled professional.
That's right.
So, it might be fun, it might be entertaining, but people really are really using it as a crutch to answer questions. And I just think that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
You cannot substitute a professional. You can't use it to get a prescription for grief. You just can't. So just please if you're out there and you're struggling, just make that first step to try to get some help and not rely on things like that for advice.
Absolutely. I echo the same sentiment. Grief needs community. We should not have to grieve alone.
Right.
We are our best healers in community. We thrive in the sense of community, and so I totally agree with you on that. That's a very dangerous thing to do, and that's why it's so important to create spaces like this, so we can talk about it and people can feel safe. It's so important for people who are grieving to feel seen, heard, valued, and validated. And to know they're not alone. So then you won't have to go to a chat GPT to seek professional help. But there's nothing, I echo the same sentiment, that replaces a human experience.
Okay. What advice would you give, and this is for either of you, to those who feel guilty for experiencing joy while grieving? Because it does happen. All of a sudden, oh, and they're in a good place momentarily. But sometimes guilt is followed by guilt. So
Absolutely. Grief and joy can coexist.
Yeah.
I, when I'm working with my clients or I'm facilitating a grief support group, I tell them and I help them build capacity in finding those glimmers of joy. And they're the smallest thing. You might notice that the sky is really beautiful today. That's a glimmer of joy. If you chuckle at something and you forget, I have not laughed in a minute, that's a glimmer of joy. If you are creating the tradition, the new tradition, or just generating the same tradition for the holidays, that is a glimmer of joy. So I believe that we have to intentionally seek those glimmers of joy, and they are very helpful and they're very healing, and it shows that you are alive and that love is still there to carry forward. So yes, grief and joy to anyone that is listening. Do not feel guilty when you have that smile on your face, or when you've had a good night's sleep, or that you've had a really good emotional release as a cry. That is wonderful, and embrace it and applaud yourself for it.
Okay.
Now, I have a question,
Yes.
LaTanya. I know there's someone out here that needs to hear the answer to this question. What about moving on and starting and dating again
Yeah.
after a loss, as a widow or a widower?
Yeah.
I have several questions related to this.
Sure.
Do men and women process that differently?
I think I never like to say moving on, I like to say moving forward. That we carry love forward. We learn how to carry that love forward. In working with both men and women, because I've both widows and widowers, it just really depends on the relationship. I don't think it's any prescriptive measure forward. I know that's funny because I was sharing this with someone that, they're like, wow, they remarried really fast. Well, it's their lived experience. It's how they process their grief, and we don't all process it the same. So it's okay to go forward. It's okay to embrace love again. It's okay to have that joy, to be able to still live. You're still alive, and I still want people to have hope, and I still want people to have that joy and learn how to carry that together and partner with it. So, yeah, I don't think it's a prescriptive measure in doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few friends actually that have attempted to date a widower.
Yeah.
Are there signs or red flags that maybe they think they're ready and they're not, if their house is still full of pictures of, the spouse, or they're talking about, their husband or wife who is deceased? For a person who's dating someone who has lost someone, are there red flags that they should be aware of that says, okay, you might not be as ready as you think you are?
Well, one thing is that you cannot expect a person to just forget about the person that they were married to, So that person is part of their life, part of their history, and they'll always be close to their heart. But I think that in a situation where a person, may still be in the grief process, still crying and wanting to move forward but just unable to, let it go, you know. But I wouldn't. People should never expect a person who is a widow or widower to forget about the person that they were married to, and think, okay, well, I'm in their life now, so I'm the new person. It doesn't work like that, you know.
Absolutely.
So yes,
And I do think when you know, two individuals who have lost a spouse, I think it can be very beautiful because you are understanding the common denominator and you're understanding the same language, and so you understand the value of healing and seeking help and sense of community, and so you tend to embrace and join in a different way. So I think it's definitely some beauty in that too. But I totally agree with you. I think you have to be mindful of that love is going to always be there. It just transforms. It just transforms.
Yes,
So-
yes, yes. Well, in this holiday season, we certainly want to offer hope. You know, we don't want to go out with doom and gloom. Absolutely not. But just to inspire and let people know that, hey, we're here during the holidays. There is help and there is hope. What is a small everyday habit that a person can develop to make them feel more resilient during this season?
you know, one thing that you can do is don't get caught up in the hype. You know, we put so many expectations on ourselves. I have to do this. I have to go to this party. I have to purchase gifts. Say no. Learn how to say no.
Okay.
You know, this is a stressful time because we just feel like we have to do certain things. We have to meet people's expectations. You don't have to go to every holiday party. Say, you know what, I'm not gonna be able to make it. You don't owe anybody an explanation, but people get so overwhelmed. Just take time for yourself and don't get absorbed in expectations.
Now, isn't that easier said than done? It's difficult sometimes to say no.
It is
but
very difficult, but once
yes.
you start saying no, it becomes less difficult.
Less
so you just
difficult.
have you really
Find
have
your
to just
voice.
part of that emotional intelligence. Take
Yes.
care of yourself, you know, and saying no is part of taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
I tell my clients no is a complete sentence.
Yes, it
It
is.
is.
Yes,
It is a
is.
complete sentence. And it is okay to honor your grief. It is okay to honor what you need in that moment because you don't know until it happens. There have been many times that I thought, oh, I'm going to go to this or that. And my grief said, no, you're not.
Shut it down.
You know, what you're going to do is get back in the bed. And that is okay. But that's building capacity and acceptance and knowing what your body and your mind and your heart needs. So I'm with you. Just don't get into the expectations of other people because what we tend to do is we want to calm everybody else's nervous systems when ours is disarray. So no, just honor
work
what
that
you
way.
need, and it's okay. It is okay, and you don't have to explain that to anyone. And it's okay too in this season to create new things. I know when my husband died, my son and I went to Santa Fe. Now every year we have a big old New Year Christmas Eve party, and we said, you know what, we're not going. We're gonna go be with each other, and we're gonna spend time together, and we're gonna process this. So now we go to Santa Fe every Christmas Eve.
But to that point, if
Yeah.
you have had a loss and you find that you can't go to that person's house
Yeah.
or you can't go back home or if it's something that significantly reminds you of that other person, what does that mean? Does that mean you are still grieving? You're not far enough along? What does that mean exactly?
Grief triggers are going to always be around. That's again that partnering with grief and that capacity. It's the scent, the smell, the song, the food.
Yes.
It's amazing how
The
those
Facebook
things
memory
can
that pops
triggers
up.
those
Yeah,
memories.
just
Yes.
all of those things,
Unexpectedly.
or somebody you're like, gosh, that sounds like my loved one. Or that was their favorite. Oh, they would love this. Oh, I wish I could send this meme or this reel. That is a part of the triggers that will always be a part. Again, that's why it's so valuable to seek professional help to help you navigate and understand how to handle that, how to fix, embrace the modalities that come with that when it happens, those triggers and those waves of grief.
So there is such thing as normalizing grief. do you think?
Absolutely. I think that's why we're in the conundrum we're in, because we don't normalize it.
Yeah.
You know, we stigmatize it, we ostracize it, we don't want to talk about it, we spiritual bypass it, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
Just
We'll
pray
talk
it a-
about it.
Pray
Talk
away, you
about
know.
it.
And I'm
Can't
saying
pray
this
it
as a
away.
former first lady.
Yes, yes. So
As
many
well as a
things
senior
can't be
pastor
prayed
of a
away.
Baptist church. So we tend to forget that Jesus and therapy can coexist. They are the best combination.
Yes, yes.
And so what we tend to do is tell somebody, oh, just go to the altar. They're in a better place. Or, you know, yeah, I know that, but I want my person here. Or I want my house back. Or I really like that job. You know, I want my health back. You know, so we have to be careful how we spiritual bypass individuals that are going through grief. And or, and but work perfectly together in grief. So Jesus and therapy can coexist beautifully.
Right. And you have to be careful of the things
Yeah.
you say to people because as much as we
Absolutely.
want to help, there are some things that we need to avoid saying, like you were saying, oh,
Yes.
they're in a better place. Well, I know
I know
that.
that.
But what's next?
But I want them here. Yeah,
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay
Right.
too.
Yes, yes. So we can develop a community, like you said, that can foster these empty spaces, these voids that we're feeling, the grief, the loneliness, the depression. You know, it's important to create community to make that happen. That safe
That
space
safe
you were
space.
talking about.
And to talk about them.
Yes, it's
They
okay to talk
existed.
about it.
Speak
Yes.
to anyone listening. Speak their name.
Yes,
They
yes.
they were real people.
I
Speak
love that.
their names.
Yeah.
I don't care how people feel or how uncomfortable it makes them. Speak their names.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that is great. I think, you know, again, just to wrap everything up and together, grief or sad, you know, there are some correlations and overlap in terms of the impact that they have on an individual. But when you are confronting those types of feelings, to make sure that you get professional help, are there any other last points that you would like to make to our audience from your perspective?
Yes, I just, you know, one of the things in our culture, we tend to shun help. It is so important that we break the stigma associated with mental illness, with grief. You know, we need to become emotionally intelligent. We need to learn to talk about things and trust the process. You know, so it's so important to just not bottle things up and seek help and learn and you know, and some people don't know where to turn, and like Tanya can tell you, the license is the key. You know, there's so many people, if you notice that people you can get a PhD from a Cracker Jack box these days, you know, so you have to really be careful about who you seek help from. Do your research when you're doing that. Where did the person earn their degree? Where are their experiences? You know, and if you're in the process and you feel uncomfortable, the thing to do is let it go. You know, it's a relationship. The therapy process is a relationship. So if you're with someone and they're not meeting your needs and you're not feeling comfortable, terminate the relationship. Yes.
And move on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tanya?
I think it's powerful to remember and that you are not crazy.
Yes.
I have clients all the time to say, am I crazy? No, you are not. You are grieving.
Yes.
You have experienced something that absolutely alters your genetic makeup. And that is true. You are never the same. And that's not a bad thing, because we can transform into something very powerful in our grief, in our loss. And I'm once again with you, find the spaces that make you feel less alone, to make you feel affirmed, and explore curiosity. I love that in grief. That was very helpful for me, meaning try new things, go to new spaces, find new friends. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. This has been an amazing interview, and I pray that it has helped someone. I'm sure it has. And tell us one more time how you can be reached, your Facebook or your Instagram.
My Facebook is Myrna Dartson, and Instagram and the others are Dr. Myrna1. Dr. Myrna1.
Dr. Myrna
Yeah,
what?
Myrna One, okay.
And Latanya Copeland Berry on both Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. And I am Professor, PROF_ Linda King. I didn't say that earlier. I can be found there. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you for the
Thank
work
you
you
so
do.
much. And make sure that you tune in for the after show and then also for the replay on YouTube at Marcus Lee Stephenson Show on YouTube and also on Facebook. So we want to thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We pray that this information has been beneficial and helpful to you and your family this holiday season. Make sure you take care. Make sure you check in. Make sure you engage your family and your friends, particularly those who have suffered a recent loss, and just love on each other because we need that today.
Yes.